what I can say on this is that discussions have now begun on how to also address the time after the travel ban into the EU. So there was a video conference last week on the 19th of May at technical level, which gathered member states and Schengen associated countries. That's our usual weekly video conference. Different services of the Commission, Council Secretariat, Frontex and ECDC at technical level to exchange information and coordinate actions. The Commission and Member States further discussed steps towards a phased and coordinated approach for restoring freedom of movement and lifting internal border controls. And in this context, Member States and Schengen associated countries had a first exchange of views on temporary restriction on non-essential travel to the EU beyond 15 June. In general, countries welcomed the EU coordinated approach, while some member states agreed that at least most travel restrictions within the EU and internal border controls should be lifted before removing restrictions at the external border. Other countries would prefer doing this either earlier or at a later stage. The health situation in each country must be monitored closely, and the capacity of contact tracing must be scaled up before taking the next steps of lifting the travel restrictions of non-essential travel. Discussions will continue in future meetings. The next meeting will actually take place tomorrow.
Thank you, Christian. David.
David, do you have a question on this same topic? I think so. Restrictions or the quarantine in France imposed upon United Kingdom travellers and those coming from Spain. That's the point of my question. Now, a decision was taken, but not on the basis of epidemiology, but on the basis of reciprocity. Question: does that fit the criteria which are embedded in the guidelines? Is this compatible with European Union legislation in general? Reciprocity, does that take primacy over other criteria?
Bonjour, merci.
Yes, hello, David. Good morning. Introduction of a quarantine falls within national competence. On the 13th of May, however, we did present a gradual and coordinated response to assist member states to return as quickly as is possible to free movement. The idea was that this should be done on the basis of a clear and objective criteria to be followed by a scientific approach which would take account of the specific epidemiological status of the country involved. Now, this approach, thus tabled, was welcomed. Commissioner Johansson, on the 15th of May, discussed this, and today Commissioner Kyriakides will address it on the transport package, which is to be discussed with the health ministers during the weekly video conference. So it is my understanding that member states are coordinating measures. Our approach stresses that there cannot be discrimination and that all restrictions should be based upon public health considerations and not on the basis of nationality. In addition, if a member state introduces rules or decides to abrogate specific rules, our expectation is that those member states would apply the same measures to citizens coming from countries having a similar epidemiological status. That is the approach that should be followed. Now, clearly, we will continue working with member states in the weekly meetings, but also in the technical meetings. Thank you.
Oui, mais
I appreciate your answer, but just to be clear, Is that clear for the French government? My question related to France specifically. France announced a quarantine for citizens or individuals traveling from Spain and the United Kingdom. There is a quarantine in the United Kingdom and in Spain. So there you've got reciprocity is the principle which prevails as opposed to epidemiological considerations. So you've just set out the approach, but does the French government understand it?
David, tu réponds.
Well, you've just answered your own question, David. We, as Stéphane has mentioned, we have criteria that have been recommended to member states. So the situation is crystal clear. The question you've raised is for the French authorities. They need to be asked on what basis they took these decisions. Our position is crystal clear as to how things should be, but not publicly. My question for you is France respecting the rules? I'm not the guardian of the treaties. I understand that this is a query for the French authorities. Allow me to recall, for your benefit, that these are recommendations which were put forward by the Commission. It's not a question of the treaties here. These are recommendations from the Commission regarding the way that member states should proceed regarding health rules or restrictions to be applied when crossing the border during the period of gradual lifting of quarantine restrictions. Allow me to repeat, legally speaking, this is a national competence.
Voilà.